Fitin10 Nation, it is day 6 of the Fitin10 challenge. Moving right along, almost 1 week in, so almost a 10th into this challenge. I'm telling you, the time flies by. So just be aware of that, okay? Before you know it, as I said before you know it, this challenge will be over. Take advantage of each and every day. I may have mentioned this to you guys in class, or maybe I mentioned this in a previous video. You guys are sending me your diaries. I know a lot of you have added me as a friend in MyFitnessPal, so I can take a look at your diary. Just remind me if you've done that and you don't send me your diary. Just remind me to look at your diary. Also, I may not know who you are through your diary because you've got some weird name, some weird MyFitnessPal name, so I don't know who you are. So just let me know who you are, please. Okay? And let me know if you want me to look at your journal. All right? I will periodically just look through the journals as is, but I can't give you feedback if I don't know who you are, okay? So just help me out on that one, all right? Okay, I sent you a link in your, well, there's 2 links in that, that macro email you got, the formal email that you got on Monday evening. The second link, it should be www.trainonmain.com/Fitin10 check-in, all one word. That is where you're going to send me your feedback this coming Sunday evening. Okay, the end of the week, I want you to give me your feedback. Okay, each and every one of you, send me your feedback so so I can hear all your concerns. Okay, it allows me to know how you're doing. It will also allow me to make, potentially, modifications to your macros, okay? More or less than what I normally would do, okay? So your feedback to me is really, really important. Be as, well, I mean, don't leave me with a huge, well, you know what, I don't care. You can write me a book if you want. But what's most important here is that you spend the time in replying to me and laying out everything that you're struggling with, or you're concerned with, or whatever. Okay. There's a question there that asks, what are you going to improve upon? Okay, you need to put in something specific. So don't say I'm going to try to work out more. That's not specific. You have to put in something that's going to be like something you can be accountable to. Specifically, like, I only did 2 cardio sessions last week. This week, I'm going to do 3. That is very specific. Or, I only got, I only averaged out 70% of my protein. This next week, I'm going to get 85% of my protein every single day, at least. You need to be very specific, please, okay? This will help you a lot. I don't know why I said please. It's not for me, okay? It's for you, all right? But I really want you to, to see the results of this. Okay, let's talk about something that is, I think, really interesting. And I know, usually I talk about this later in the challenge, and I'm going to talk about this again, or at least I'll touch upon it when we come up on different topics about macronutrients and diet, and potentially from your questions. But people always think that carbohydrates are the enemy of fat loss, okay? So a lot of you I know have already done a ketogenic diet, right? Now, is there truth to this? Kind of, but it's really overblown. And I will tell you that really carbohydrates got a bad name because there's been just this, well, for those of you who grew up in the 80s, like I was a young kid in the 80s, but even in the 90s, low-fat diets were all the rage, and carbs were like if you looked at the food pyramid, which has changed obviously for good reason, it was like carbs. Eat, like, your diet should be like 80% carbs. And then a lot of the foods that came out on the market were very, very carbohydrate laden, especially with cheaper carbohydrates and certain forms of carbohydrates that that certainly didn't do us well in terms of liver health and type 2 diabetes, specifically speaking, okay? So it's not so much that carbs are bad. It's just that the amounts that we took in, or that we still take in, and the sources of the carbohydrates. Okay, now when I say sources, I mean like you might get. Well, let me not jump ahead. Let me just stop there. Okay, and let me go through why carbs get such a bad name. Okay, well, let me go through the pros of carbs first, okay? Because you may not think there are pros to carbs, but there are pros to carbs, okay? And one of the pros to carbohydrates, to eating a sufficient amount of carbohydrates, is the function of your thyroid. Now, if you do one day of low carbohydrates, you're not going to affect your thyroid levels, okay? So for those of you who don't know about your thyroid is like the master gland for regulating your metabolism, okay? The amount of energy that you'll chew through in a day, specifically your BMR, okay? The amount of energy you burn at rest. So if you follow low carbohydrates over time, and this will vary from person to person, you will affect your thyroid production. Your thyroid production will go down at least a little bit, okay? So be aware of that. The other thing is, carbohydrates are protein sparing. So this is really, really important. If you don't get enough of your other energy sources, like your fats and your carbohydrates, you're going to use protein as energy. Now that's a very expensive energy. To convert protein into glucose, that's a very arduous process in the body. And it's like, why would you, protein is so expensive, carbohydrates are so cheap, why would you rely on protein as an energy source, okay? When you are trying to recover from exercise, when you're trying to at least maintain muscle mass, if not build some muscle mass, which I'm going to encourage you all to do, especially those of you who are over the age of 50, protein plays an important role in this. How am I already at 7 minutes? Okay, let's speed this up. Carbohydrates have things like a lot of micronutrients, vitamins and minerals, and antioxidants and polyphenols, and all these great plant nutrients that are good for your health. They are also the quickest source of energy, okay? Or the easiest, you can think of the easiest, you can attain the energy from carbohydrates the easiest, particularly starch and sugars, okay? And also having carbohydrates in your diet makes your diet more sustainable, okay? Now let's talk about the cons. When you have carbohydrates, you get this this heightening of insulin, okay? Now you can get insulin response, you can get insulin increasing in the bloodstream from eating protein, but not at the same rate as when you eat carbohydrates. Insulin is like the master hormone that's responsible for regulating, and glucagon, okay? But let's leave that out for now. Insulin is the hormone that is responsible for lowering your blood sugar levels, okay? And so when you eat carbohydrates, specifically a lot of carbohydrates, you're going to get a high insulin response. When you have a high insulin response, your body's not capable of burning fat. Okay, when you have insulin in the bloodstream, your body cannot burn through fat. Also, insulin sensitivity goes down, which means the reception, the way that your body's able to, particularly your muscle cells, the ability for your muscle cells to take in carbohydrates is not as good if you do a lot of carbohydrates over time. Okay, this is bordering on to type 2 diabetes. I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible. I will talk about this more in the future. Carbohydrates they're non-satiating. You're going to feel hungry if you eat a lot of carbohydrates, okay? And you eat less fat and less protein. This sort of goes along with just my last point I mentioned. They tend to increase ghrelin in the body, okay? This is a hormone that makes you feel hungry, okay? So keep that in mind, both the pros and the cons, okay? That's not to say that you shouldn't have carbohydrates, but let's just keep them in check. Like we should keep every other macro in check, okay? All right, so I'm going to stop there, and I'm going to get the message of the day. I didn't even talk about another protein bar I want to talk about, but sometimes these videos go super, super long. Okay, message of the day. If you talk about it, it's a dream. If you envision it, it's possible. If you schedule it, it's real. Okay, so I'm going to say it again. If you talk about it, it's a dream. If you envision it, it's possible. But if you schedule it, it becomes much more real. I want you to schedule in when you're going to make your food, when you're going to do your workouts, when you're going to do, your cardio. Okay, this is really, really important because you will become more accountable to it. Okay, set aside specifically when you're going to do it in advance, and it is more likely to happen. Okay, all right, you guys, positive energy, positive vibes. Believe in yourself, and for the love of God, give some gratitude, and I'll talk to you all very soon. See ya. Clicker's supposed to work.